Hey, everybody, what's up? Welcome to the post-game show of the Oakland Marathon. We can treat this like ESPN. I don't know what personality I would be, dude, but who would you be?
Oh God, that's a really good question. Okay. I feel like you're kind of the Tony Reale here. You're keeping the rest of us reprobates organized. So I don't know what that would make me then.
I'd
I
have to
don't know.
press
I'll
all the
take
buttons, you and everything.
right. Yeah, yeah. You can start muting people. Yeah, no.
You want to be Charlie Steiner? Do you remember when Charlie Steiner was laughing at Carl Lewis singing the national anthem on Sports Center?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's all of my.
Like, honestly, so Lori has said to me more than once, and I believe that had I gone into like communications journalism, I could have been like an anchor on the news or something like that. But
1 million.
I fully believe I would be like Charlie Steiner every day. Like every time some ridiculous news story came up, I wouldn't be able to control myself. There's no way.
That's it. Well, and that's the thing. You're seeing less and less of that now, which it's good. And I'm certainly not one to knock the current crop of, and all the Stephen A's and Skip Baylesses of the world aside. The current crop, they're definitely a bit more professional, a bit more buttoned up.
Yeah.
It's almost more like watching. I was gonna say like Marv Albert or something like that. He still had, quite a bit of personality showing through. And I'm not saying the new guys don't. But there definitely isn't that. They don't get quite as emotional as the ones we grew up with.
Marv Albert's still with us?
That's a great question. I don't think so. Now I got to look it up because I don't want to be telling stories, but I don't believe he is. No.
While Santino is looking this up, we've done a poor job of introducing the show. We're 2 minutes and 18 seconds into it. Welcome to Beyond the Training. This is a segment or a series that we have been recording as part of the 2026 Everyday Athlete Clubhouse Run Club Tour. Our first, I believe, 7 episodes have been leading up to this past weekend on March 22nd. Santino and I towed the line. And when people write toe the line, please spell it correctly. It's TOE. You're not TOWing it. You're not pulling the line.
You're not pulling. Yeah, you're putting your toe on the start line. That's what's going on here.
That if I have a pet peeve when it comes to endurance sports and run fluencers and triathlon fluencers or whatever you call them, it's when they write towing the line with a W. And I'm like, are you actually dragging the line with you?
Where are you dragging that line to?
That's my pet peeve.
It's going to be a short ass race if you're dragging the start line with you all the way to the finish. But that's just how I look at it.
Today's episode is going to be a recap of what we experienced, what went right, what went wrong throughout the race, and maybe some reflection on our training from the previous. I started in December, so for the previous basically almost 16 weeks of training. And then honestly, turning the page, putting the wax seal on this chapter and looking forward to the Pittsburgh Marathon, which is in 6-ish weeks. So, all right, dude, let's get into it. First of all, do you have your medal with you? Because like this medal is dope, dude.
It's a very nice medal. And then they got like the really nice, like hard enamel on the back. Like somebody, they put some thought into designing these. These are awesome. And that's the thing. Not totally. I'm already going to take us off on a tangent here. I don't necessarily, I don't want to sound like an old guy yelling at the clouds here. I don't necessarily like how gimmicky a lot of the medals have gotten. And I have some with the little spinners and the whatever, this and that. This is like a very solid, like old school, nice medal, like something you actually want to display. Yeah. And like, I don't know, a lot of other RDs could take a lesson from whoever designed this one for Oakland.
100%. And if you don't want to spend, I'm guessing $8 to $10 per medal, contact us at RTB Awards.
100%. 100%. You're gonna have the most. Oh, go on.
We make the awards out of wood, a lot cheaper, recyclable. They're better for the planet, and you get to deal with Joe Harden and myself. And all you got to do is go to runtrimag.com. RTB Awards is literally right there. Click on there, get a quote from us.
100%. It's going to be the most customizable experience that you've ever had, coming up with your own medals from start to finish. Jason and Joe, they will walk you through every step of the process. You will 1,000,000% be satisfied. And like, this is not even being funny. If anybody is in RD listening right now or whatever, don't even look anywhere else. RTB Awards, come talk to us.
This segment brought to you by RTB Awards.
Right.
And if you are a brand or a race and you want to have some representation through the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse and Run, Try, Bike, contact me. We'll make it work for you. But anyway, dude, so we put in 4 months of training, give or take, and we talked a lot about nutrition, hydration, pacing, goals, all kinds of stuff. The things that people normally talk about as they make their way through training for whatever event and then get to the race. So I'm going to say this for the Oakland Marathon. If you're interested in doing a marathon and if it's your first, I would recommend this event because David Monaco, who is at Run Local, which puts on the event, and his team is phenomenal in terms of communication. There were emails within the last 2 weeks that were fairly consistent in letting us know what was happening. They even sent out an email about the weather so that you were prepared and understood what the weather was going to be like that day of the race. The parking around the start line, I found super easy. We got to the parking space that we were going to park in around 6:21, and we were at the Porta Johns by 6:31. It was literally like a 2-block walk to the start line from where the parking was, and the race started at 7, so it wasn't a lot of standing around or anything like that. So I would highly recommend it. So I think from a logistics standpoint, A+ for the Oakland Marathon in terms of prior to the race. The other thing I would give them an A+ on is the course marking. Even in the one area, dude, that we got a little bit confused on, we'll talk about that in a second. As I've replayed it in my head, based on all the other markings that we saw throughout the event and the course, we screwed up because there was no big sign to say left turn, right turn, or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And excuse me. That's kind of the main thing. Really, I was beyond impressed with how well organized this whole event was. Like you said, even before you get there, the communication through emails, things like that, whatever. And, there's a lot of, obviously, you sign up for a marathon, you're going to get regular communication, and that's great. But yeah, like you said, stuff like they're giving you the weather forecast for that day and whatever. That's really kind of above and beyond. Even the expo, I believe I even remarked to you at one point, I was just really surprised at how not hectic it felt for how big of an expo it was. They did a really, really great job of how it was set up, how you were kind of able to go in, check in, get all your goodies, whatever, this and that, and then check out some of the vendors. And they had other vendor booths and activities and things like that outside. They had that kids race. It looked like the kids were having a blast. It was really, really well organized. The DJ booth, all of that. And then, the actual race itself, the course was marked really well. I still don't quite understand what happened at that one spot. We will have to kind of get into it.
So let me explain how this happened. So Santino and I ran together for the first 15 or 16 miles. And this is very early on in the race. You come down this really steep downhill, which, by the way, I don't know if you did this, but as I was running down that steep downhill and saw the athletes coming up, I was like, mother effer, we're going to have to come back up this. So we come down and we make a right turn onto whatever street it was. And you do like this loop out and you come back and it feels like you go back up this hill that we were just on. But what I realized after replaying it in my mind, dude, so when you get to the top of that hill, there's a barrier that makes you do a U-turn.
Yeah.
Which should have been the first notification, like, okay, we weren't here before. The second notification as to why we weren't here before is because the hill we actually ran up after coming back around was a lot shorter.
Yeah.
So you do the loop and you come back down and you're back on the same street that you were just on, or at least it feels that way. It was like deja vu. I still haven't looked at the course map to really identify if it was or if it wasn't. And then you do anotde-loop and you come out and then you go back up that super long hill before you then descend and start getting back towards downtown area. So, but Santino and I actually stopped at the aid station because I was like, I am so confused. Like, where are we? And the lady was like, no, 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 you're on the right course. You're right. The aid station captain. And she's like, you're cool. This is where you're supposed to be. So she helped us out. We probably lost, I don't know, man, a minute and a half.
I think we lost about a minute and a half, if memory serves, when I checked my watch, which, that time was pretty easy to make up after that. But yeah, it was, I still, like I said, I still don't quite understand what happened. The only thing I can think is they had us going down a different side street coming back or something like that. It all made sense in the end. We got there. It was very weird at the time.
It was such a deja vu moment, dude.
Yeah.
It was like, I've been here already. Like, why am I back here going in the same direction that we just were? Shouldn't we be heading back towards Lake Merritt and downtown?
Well, and that's the only thing I can think with regards to that, because it was a different aid station.
Yes.
But they had the aid stations almost in the exact same spot on both streets, and just kind of using that as like your landmark. I think that's got to be the only. That's what I'm telling myself. That's what I'm telling myself is where the confusion came from. I still don't quite get it, but it really was.
But so again, the course is really well done. I will say, I told this to Lori on Sunday night, Monday. Being a trail runner at the Oakland Marathon is super beneficial because the roads aren't smooth over asphalt in a lot of places. And so you have to be able to pick a line to run and make sure that you're not stepping in a pothole or a crack in the street or whatever. So I will say being a trail runner benefited me on that course a little bit in the first half over by Lake Merritt in that area.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. And then again, once you're kind of going through that like industrial area, I believe that street is called Burma Road, the one that runs kind of parallel to the bridge before you get on there.
Yeah.
And obviously it's an industrial area. They're not going to be super manicured roads. You got, 18 wheelers driving down those things, whatever, this and that. But that is something you do have to kind of be mindful of is, and I'm not somebody who's always eyes forward anyway. When I'm running, I do like to kind of keep an eye on my surroundings, because you never know. That would be a really embarrassing way to hurt yourself, as if you trip over a pothole or something like that. So I do like to check the terrain pretty regularly. But yeah, it was there was a couple spots where it was a little gnarly. I mean, nothing horrifying, but definitely, I think, like you're saying, as a trail runner, you probably had kind of an innate advantage with that, where it's not necessarily. Whereas I'm getting a little paranoid with the looking up and down. You can probably kind of look far enough ahead and gauge when this pothole or that whatever is coming up and plan your route accordingly.
Before we get into a little bit more of the discussion, I want to ask you this. What distance did you have on your watch?
This registered as my longest marathon ever. And I tried to hit as many tangents as possible. I had almost 27 miles on my watch.
Holy macaroni.
Yeah.
Dude, I was gunning for those tangents. I ran 26.5. I am over the fucking moon on the tangents that I ran at the Oakland Marathon.
I think I was at 26.78 if memory serves. So yeah.
Yeah, I was super ecstatic because there are, in the very beginning of the course, you're running in and around Lake Merritt in Oakland, and there are a number of turns in that section. And so I was like, I am taking every tangent I can possibly take. I am hugging inside corners and setting myself up for the future. And then once you get to the second half, when you're running in that industrial area, that's all straight running.
100%.
And so you don't have much in the way of running tangents. So I'm super stoked that I ran 26.5. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Okay. We get to the race site. We go to the porta potty. We get in line. Lori gives us our sweet goodbyes and makes her way to the start line to get pictures of us. As we're trying to make our way through the field, we managed to get to the 5-hour mark. I think that's about where we were.
Yes.
As close as we could get to the start line. In that moment, there's people all around us. There's MCs that are getting people started right at 7 a.m. Take me through your thinking. What are you thinking in that moment as we get ready to run? I know we have said 3-hour, 45-minute goal, but we've also been very open on this show that it's a nice goal to have. It's not the end all be all. So what were you thinking as we were at the front of the line for the 5-hour marker for people running the marathon?
You know, it's interesting. And I, looking back on it now, it was probably a little bit prescient. But if you recall, we were talking to a gentleman right as we were about to take off, and he was saying his goal was 5 hours and, you know, whatever, this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'd be cool if that's the case, whatever. I figured again, though, that, you know, and we did, we were able to kind of catch up to, I believe at one point we were even beating the 4-hour pacers.
Yep.
So, you know, it was just kind of, it wasn't necessarily that I was sitting here thinking about any particular goals in mind. That conversation with the guy kind of stuck with me a little bit. But really, other than that, it was, for me, it's the same as every other race. I try and just clear my head as much as possible, because I do find that the overthinking, it leads to performance issues at times. So I just kind of try and keep my mind as blank as possible when I'm lining up at the starting line.
Yeah. So for me, I didn't like 3:45. I removed that from my mind almost immediately. And I was like, yeah, if I can get 4 hours here, that'll set me up for Pittsburgh or SF to try to go after that 3:45 from a confidence standpoint.
Yeah.
And I think the first 2 miles that we ran were like 8:40, 8:45, somewhere in that vicinity.
Little off pace. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought, okay, yeah, but for a 4-hour run, you'd be at 9 minutes, 9:05 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so we're slightly ahead. That's cool. I can live with that. You know, the adrenaline, and it didn't feel like I was exerting myself. I felt like I felt smooth in those first couple of 3 miles. And then, dude, that first hill, I was like, holy bejesus.
That first hill was an absolute killer. It was literally, for anyone who's thinking about running the Oakland Marathon in the future, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get back out there next year just because I really want to see what I can do when I'm doing it. We'll get to what happened with me later. But for anyone who's thinking about running it next year, don't pay attention to the elevation map. That first hill looks like it's going to be much easier than the bridge and the back half and everything.
Yeah.
That first hill was the absolute most difficult part of the race, really.
Yeah, that first half, the first, I think it's about 8 miles.
Yeah.
It chews you up.
Go on.
Yeah, the bridge was the thing that we focused on throughout conversations we've been having. Not for nothing, but if you're in good shape, and I don't mean like physically fit, but like by the time you get to that bridge, which is about miles 16 and a half, 17, if you're feeling it, you can run that whole bridge. It's not steep.
It's that's the thing. It's a lot of elevation gain, but it's over the course of about 4 miles. Yeah. Whereas this hill, what was that? That was maybe a quarter mile, like straight up. It was ridiculous. Yeah.
And there were 3 of those. I think there were 3 of those on that in the first 8 miles that were literally straight up. And then you had other ones that were they were short, but they were still steep. So you were doing a lot of climbing in that neighborhood, in the streets back there.
And it's a little difficult to gauge too, because that's the thing. I noticed a lot of people had kind of stopped to walk earlier, and I probably should have done that myself. But when you look at it, at the base of the hill, it doesn't seem as steep. Once you're about halfway up, it's like, oh shit, this is way worse than I thought it would be. I should have probably tackled this a little more slowly to begin with. But
yeah, my ultra trail running days came in because when we hit that first hill, we got about halfway up, and I walked the second of it.
Yeah,
because I'm not saying that because I'm the smartest guy in the world. I'm saying it because I still had the fear of the bridge, and I was like, I need to save some energy for that bridge climb that we've got to do when we go back out there. And so I was like, okay, conserve energy now. This will take you, instead of running up this in 25 seconds, you'll walk up it in 32. You'll be fine. You can make it.
Exactly. But yeah, that was definitely kind of the gnarliest spot, just in terms of the actual course topography, I would say. Like you said, there was probably about 3 hills, but that very first one, it really took me by surprise. So
And then the second one, which is really long, is the third of the long hills.
Yes.
And that's when you start getting back. You leave the neighborhood and you start going back into the Lake Merritt area. And I did the same thing there. I ran halfway up the hill and then I power walked the second half till I got to the top. And I will say this, in that first, I think it's 6 to 8 miles, that first 6 to 8 miles, and you're in that neighborhood area, was pretty dope. There were families that were on balconies and people out on the street. I even saw, I don't know if you noticed him, a dude that was passing out donuts and coffee.
I saw that. Yeah, yeah. The guy, he was offering Malort shots. I'm assuming he must be a Chicago transplant, whatever. But it was definitely a party atmosphere. So that's the, if anyone who's listening is familiar with the area, that's the Piedmont neighborhood. And yeah, they really turned out and came to party, which was awesome. And, you know, you see it, you know, on a lot of marathon courses, but this was just something different. You know, you don't see it usually that early. And I think that was nice. That kind of gives you that little extra boost where it's like, hey, I got this. So, yeah.
There was a vibe to it. The music that people were playing in the different areas was dope. The cops that were there were cheering us on as we ran through it, and they were managing the road closures. It was cool. Like, honestly, if you ran the half, you had that for 70%, 80% of your race, more than likely. So if you're running the half, you're going to feel that energy throughout almost the entire race, which is pretty damn cool. Actually, you probably felt it through the entire race at the half, because it's all basically run around the Lake Merritt Piedmont downtown area, right?
Yeah, 100%. Because that's the thing, they had you turn off right before we turned to head to the bridge. You turn off and go back towards Lake Merritt.
Yeah,
and then, you know, obviously you're crossing the same finish line for the half. So yeah, if you're contemplating running any half marathon in 2027, seriously, I would recommend Oakland, because yeah, that half, it's going to be a party from start to finish 100%. The entire way.
When we came down, I don't remember that street, but we come out of that Piedmont area and we're running on the main strip that takes you towards the art center. And we saw your sister and Noelle and Ivan there. And like, just that whole strip right there was pumping. It was loud. It gave me a lot of energy, because I knew with every step that we were taking at that point that we were getting closer to the bridge. Now, again, it's another 10 miles before we get to the bridge, but I knew that we were getting closer to the bridge. And I was like, I need to soak up this energy and remember it, so that when I get into those longer or later miles, not longer, in those later miles, I have something to rely on. Thinking back on it, so as we're passing your sister and we're right near basically the finish line at that point, like, how were you feeling?
Oh, I was feeling great. I mean, I was feeling great up until the point I wasn't. So I, you know, at no point was I ever like, oh, I'm in trouble. This wasn't San Francisco for me. So, you know, I'd say just in terms of, really, that's kind of the main difference. At the end of this one, I did not feel bummed. I felt very accomplished. But yeah, at that point in particular, it's like there was no doubt in my mind that we were going to go sub 4 at that point. So I was feeling, you know, incredibly confident, feeling really strong, feeling really good, because it's like, now it's a party. And then again, like you said, you got the bridge in the back of your mind. It's like, the bridge is kind of the last challenge that I had for myself, you know, in my head, just looking at the elevation and whatever. And it's, you know, really, truth be told, that very, very last downhill, with about, when you're like right at about mile 26 and like the finish line is literally around the corner.
Yeah.
That was also a bit of a killer.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like, okay, once I get over the bridge, we're good to go, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, at that point, definitely, like you said, just soaking up all that really great energy. And it really was just such a party atmosphere. People with the music, and, you know, just the streets are lined with everybody is cheering everyone on. And, you know, it's impossible. It would be impossible to be out there and not, you know, really just take something away from all those good vibes.
Did you feel like you were in control and not being moved beyond your effort with the crowd that was there?
Oh yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Yeah, I never really felt out of control at any point. I didn't really feel like I was pushing it too much. And, you know, I think at one point I even remarked to you, that was kind of my plan, is, okay, I'm going to step on it a bit more in the back half.
Yep.
But yeah, I felt like there was plenty in the tank at that point.
So then we run through a little bit of the downtown, and then we get into the industrial area. And I will say this for the industrial area, it immediately reminded me of my last marathon 14 years ago at Vegas, where you're in factories and warehouse settings, and it's just straight. And look, I don't want to make 75 turns either, but when you can't, when there's no marker on the horizon to run towards, you're like, oh my goodness, we're going to be here forever. And that's what it felt like. You go under that little bridge, you come up, and then you're just running. May have been 50 miles if it was a mile, for all I care at that point. It just felt like we were running on that for so long before we make the right turn to then run on that section, which is before we get to the bridge. So take me through in that moment, because for me, like when we went under the bridge, I just said it felt long, but my body felt good. Like I was like, okay, I'm into this. I still didn't feel like the weather had ratcheted up too much. I still felt cool. I was taking in my electrolytes with Tailwind in my flask. I had goo and Spring Energy that I was eating. And I started about an hour into the race, I started taking the Salt Stick electrolyte tabs. And so like I felt really good through that section there. So how were you feeling as we're going through the long sections on the industrial side of the course?
Honestly, that was probably about the best I felt the whole time. And as we've talked about before, I don't really like the really long straightaways for that exact reason. I need some sort of a visual marker where even if it's like a mile down the road, it's like, okay, I know that, if I'm pushing it, I'll be there in 8 minutes. If I'm, just kind of cruising, I'll be there in 9 minutes. If I'm taking it easy, I'll be there in 10 minutes, but I'll be there, that sort of thing. And it just wasn't that. But from a physical standpoint, I felt really good. Honestly, that may have been kind of what set me up, because it was, kind of after that you get to that part where you're getting on the bridge, and that was that last aid station. It's like, kind of have to use the bathroom. I'm going to stop and take a bathroom break. And, we'll get into that a bit later, but I kind of pinpointed that as like the moment that it's like, oh, something happened here. So, yeah.
I will say this, and again, kudos to David and Run Local. They had like these inflatable markers.
Those were so cool.
Right on the course. And they had ones that just said Run Local on them, which I didn't look at my watch, but I'm guessing that they were probably half mile markers to the next. And then they'd have one that would say mile 18 or whatever on it, on those long straightaways. So I was using those as sort of like the markers. Okay, I got to mile eight. I remember passing it and I tapped the mile markers, mile marker 14. I remember tapping it like, okay, I got you. There's 12 more miles to go. But then they would have one that was like at a half mile after that, and then the mile 13 marker. And it was pretty neat to have those out there. And I will say this, after, for me, getting to the half mile point, we were at about, I want to say like 2:05, I think is where we were on that. We were right around 2 hours, maybe one.
Yeah, I think we were a little under 2 hours.
A little under 2 hours?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, 4:15 is something that I can do, figuring I'm going to slow down.
Yeah.
And when we registered for Oakland, I asked Lori, what's the average finisher time for a marathon for a 52-year-old male? And she had looked it up, and it's somewhere between 4:15 and 4:30. And I was like, okay, I knew 3:45 wasn't going to happen. And I was like, okay, I think you're right, dude. I think we were at 1:55 around the half marathon mark.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that gives me a little over 2 hours to get this done. I feel okay. 4:15 feels good. And I wasn't pissed off or upset or sad about any of that. I was like, 4 hours is still doable, and 4:15 certainly feels doable. And then when we get to mile marker 15, which is essentially where you start to get onto the on-ramp of the bridge for pedestrians, which is where you peel off to use the restroom. And thumbs up to you, dude. When we got to the starting line, we had said it the night before too. It was, we're going to run with each other, and if somebody feels good, keep going.
Yeah, 100%.
And at the when you stopped to go to the porta potty, you were like, I'm gonna use the porta potty, keep going, I'll catch up. Or I think that's what you said anyway, but you said to keep going. And so that's when we split up. And so tell me what happens here, is because you said this is sort of the pinpoint of the turning point of the race.
Yeah, at least, when I was kind of, and again, it's one of those things where I'm totally at peace with what happened. So I haven't really kind of poured over exactly what it is, but just, I would say if I had to pick a point where it's like, okay, this is where things started to go south. So yeah, feel the urge to take a tinkle and see the porta potties coming up, and it's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna stop and use the bathroom. If I lose a minute or two, whatever, I can probably make that up. Well, all the porta potties are occupied and there's a line, so I'm standing there. And again, not standing for a long time, but standing for a couple minutes, do my business, grab a cup of water, get back to running, and I notice I'm starting to feel a little tingle in my quads and my hamstrings. And it's like, well, maybe I was standing a little too long, and things started to cool off. It was, again, a couple minutes. I think I lost about 5 minutes altogether, and 5 minutes is kind of hard to make up, but not impossible. And it's just not going away as I'm trying to kind of work it out, whatever. It's like, okay, man, we're dealing with a little lactic buildup. Why don't I switch to Galloway? So at that point on the bridge, I'm doing Galloway, get pretty much over the bridge. I think I saw you had turned around as I was pretty much just over the bridge, because that's when you saw me, and it was bad. I was starting to kind of grab my leg, whatever. And it's like, well, rather than 1 minute on, 1 minute off, let's take a couple minutes off and then get back to it. So take 2-3 minutes, cross the bridge, and there's a real quick little turnaround there on Yerba Buena Island, Treasure Island. They're all the same island, but they got two names for some reason. I don't know why. Real quick turnaround, and as I was telling everybody at the end, there's a wall there. I am so lucky that wall is there. My entire right leg just completely seized up on me. I was about to go down. I grabbed the wall and luckily did not fall. And it's like, oh, we've got a problem now. So, just kind of trying to walk it off, walking back up onto the bridge. There's a little kind of observation area, and I noticed some people had kind of pulled off and they were stretching out on the railing and whatever. And so I stopped to do that for a couple of minutes, and it's like, okay, so let's get back to it. Every time I'd start to try and run, take a couple of steps, and it's like, nope, leg keeps seizing up again. And I had used the term bonked, and maybe it wasn't a bonk, maybe it was. I mean, it wasn't, I'm not going to say, oh, physically I was feeling great, but physically I felt like I still had, enough in me to finish if possible. But every couple of steps I'd take when I'd start to run, that leg would seize up on me again. And, after the fact, talking to Lori, I do believe she's correct that it was an IT band issue. It's much better today. Yesterday, it was still, a little stiff. I was still kind of walking like Frankenstein's monster. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what I had done there. There's some stretches I probably should have been doing or something beforehand, but it did not want to cooperate. So that's once you're over the bridge, that's mile 22 or whatever. And at that point, I just threw in the towel as far as running goes. And it's like, I can walk 4 miles. It's going to be a while, but I'm going to walk these. And that's what I ended up doing. So
let me paint the picture for the people who didn't race and don't know. So mile 15 is basically under an overpass. There's an aid station there, Porta Johns. And by the time you get to the start of the bridge where it starts to climb, you're basically at mile 16.
Yeah.
And you climb, and let me rephrase this. You run on an incline. It's not climbing like on a mountain on a trail. You're running on an incline. So set your treadmill to 3 to 4% and run for about 2.5 miles. And that's essentially what the bridge is. So you'll pass the 16-mile marker, you'll pass the 17-mile marker, you'll get to Treasure Island, you'll do this short down, which goes downhill, which means you got to come back up this short little piece. And then you start running back. And here's the thing. So while in my mind, for me, I was like, okay, we're running up this thing for 2.5-ish miles. That means you get to run down for 2.5-ish miles, and I'll make up whatever time. Cause I did start to walk on the bridge as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can make up that time running downhill. But here's the thing, folks. you're now at basically mile 20 of the marathon, which is, you know, the door is either wide open and you're killing it, or the door starts to close and things start to go a little bit south on you at mile 20 of a marathon. And now you're going downhill, and it's a gradual downhill. And so now your quads are taking that pounding on the downhill. And I ran for as long as I could. I would pick up groups of people. There would be like 2 or 3 athletes running together, and I'd hang with them, and then 2 or 3 more athletes after I dropped them. And that really helped, but it wasn't as easy as I expected it to be. I was like, if we're running downhill, it should be okay. We could take this downhill and it'll help. Which is when I then realized like my stride had shortened up probably way too much. So even though I'm only 5'6", 5'7", I have a fairly long stride for an athlete that height. And when I'm taking shorter strides, it's not comfortable and it's slower. I know people are like, well, with a shorter stride, your cadence increases. And look, that's cool for the general population, but it doesn't work for me. I run at like 160, 165 cadence. So I'm taking longer strides. And so now it felt like I was almost shuffling, getting off of the bridge. And that's when I decided, I was like, okay, we're going to Galloway method this the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And my idea was when I hit the mile marker, I'm going to walk for 2 minutes and then I'm going to run to the next mile marker.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah.
Walk for 2 minutes and then run to the next mile marker. But what I found out is in that first mile, dude, so mile 22 to 23, like by the time I got to the 23 mile marker, I was like almost exhausted. And I was like, okay, I got to change this up. So I went to 5 and 1, run 5 minutes, walk a minute, run 5 minutes, walk a minute. And going to that method, getting through that warehouse section felt fast. Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm moving through this. Now, granted, I was doing 11 and a half to 12 minute miles compared to when we started, 850s. But in retrospect, it moved me through pretty quickly. The one thing I would like to work on as we get towards Pittsburgh, and I have a very interesting tidbit for you about Pittsburgh, as I talked to Val on Sunday, but is working on the mental side of keeping my stride as normal as possible later in the race and not fall back on what I'm going to call shuffling in comparison to the longer stride. Because when I started to take longer strides at the end of Oakland, it felt better. Like I was like, it feels like I'm actually running. And some of the video you see from Ivan and before I go under the bridge, and then Lori after I come out from the bridge as we head to the finish line, I'm running normally. And it felt good in that moment. And now granted, it might be the adrenaline of being almost done.
Sure, yeah.
Look at me, I'm a champ. I ran these last 0.1 of the 26. Feeling great. But that's the one thing I would probably focus on for as we go to Pittsburgh and get ready for that.
No, 100%. And I was I was thinking about what am I going to do just in terms of getting ready for Pittsburgh, and just what have I learned here. And one thing I will say that I didn't really think was as huge of a deal as it is, but I switched to a lot of body weight only exercises on leg day. And I don't think that served me as well as I thought it did. Because for me, my leg day is always kind of my last day before rest day, active recovery, whatever, this and that. So, it's like, okay, I don't want to like totally beast out. I want to be able to, give myself, that whole day to recover. So I'm feeling good when I start the next block of 4 days. But to that end, I'm thinking I'm going to move my leg day to the start and just really get back into, heavier weights, whatever, this and that. Cause I did notice a difference in strength overall. But yeah, it's one of those things where I think we learned a lot about, what adjustments do we need to make for Pittsburgh. And granted, like you said, Pittsburgh is 6-7 weeks away. Yeah. So, and all the little Gen Alpha brain rot kids were just like, 6-7, or is that even cool anymore? I don't know. But to that end, it's like there's still a lot of work that can be done in that time. So definitely going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, like I probably won't do too much this weekend. If anything, if I run an hour on Sunday, that probably enough. Yeah, much during the week. But I think the way I'm looking at this is 2.5, 3 hours are going to be my long runs, because the fitness has topped. You know, we ran 26 miles.
Yeah.
There, and so it's more of a maintenance than a build type of thing at this point. But to steal from you in a sense, I'm gonna find my way into the gym and do heavier strength training on my legs throughout the next training block of 5 to 6 weeks for sure. Like this week, not at all. Like I will allow my legs to get as recovered as possible before start getting into that. And here's the irony, coincidence. I talked to Val about the Pittsburgh Marathon on Sunday, and she said there is a section which is mile 16, ironically enough, through like not through to the end, but for about 4 miles. That is the hilly part of the Pittsburgh Marathon. And do you want to know what the name of that part of Pittsburgh is called?
It's called Oakland.
Yes, it is.
Yes, I did know that. I don't even remember how I knew that, but I did know that there was a section of Pittsburgh called Oakland, which is weird because you think back to like the 70s or whatever, the Raiders and Steelers had a bit of a rivalry. So I wonder, I wonder if that influenced anything at all. But yeah, I don't know how I knew that, but I did know that.
So here my thinking is this is the Piedmont section of the Pittsburgh Marathon.
There we go.
Deal with 3 to 4 miles of climbing between miles, I think she said 16, 17 through basically 20 at that point. So we have that to look forward to, which means, yes, strength training, because this is the opposite, right? Like at the Oakland Marathon, the steeper hills were at the very beginning. And here in the Pittsburgh Marathon, the steeper climbing will be towards the end. So definitely going to need to do heavyweight strength training so that the legs can handle those hills, you know, later on in the race for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. So that's, I know for me, I'm thinking I'm probably not going to start strength training again until this weekend. I'm hoping, I've set Thursday as my date for, I'm going to go for a walk on Thursday. If I'm feeling good walking, then I'll run on Friday. But yeah, I do think that's going to kind of be the priority with Pittsburgh, because I know it is supposed to be a bit overall a hillier marathon, if memory serves anyway. So,
but not for nothing, dude. I looked at my watch data on Sunday, and there was over 1,000 feet of climbing on this event.
Oh yeah.
Right? So, you know, just a little under 40 foot per mile, which, you know, for me is a marker, because when I lived in Dallas and I would run out there, the flat terrain of the roads was about 25 foot a mile, but the trails, which again, Texas and Dallas is never going to be mistaken for climbing Everest, was about 40 foot a mile. So it would have been like running the trails in Dallas, which is not nothing, but it's also not something, but it does, you know, over the course of 4 to 4.5 hours, it wears on you.
Yeah, it adds up for sure. And I think, you know, again, just to kind of go back to what we were talking about before, I think those hills in the beginning, they really kind of set a weird pace, just in terms of, at least for me anyway, you're not full on like wrecking your legs, but you're putting a lot more wear and tear than you were expecting. Just with, you know, that one, it must have been what about if it was 1,000 feet of climb overall, that first one had to have been close to 200 feet by itself over a quarter of a mile. So
for sure. Because remember, you not only went up, then you made a small right turn, and then you went up again before making the left turn and wrapping around. So it got you, when you got to the top of that first climb, that apex of that first climb, you took a deep breath and you're like, okay. And then you realize that the course kept going up because it turned.
For sure. Yeah.
What about from a hydration and nutrition standpoint? Any changes you might incorporate going into Pittsburgh?
I don't know. I know we were talking about it afterwards. I felt good with the course hydration. I did. You know, and they had quite a few water tables there, probably more than your average marathon. I didn't check the map for it, but it seemed like you didn't go more than about 2 miles before there was another aid station. There was legitimately probably 15 aid stations across the course of that whole marathon. So, to that end, I felt fine there. Again, as far as fueling, I need to find some sort of a solution for in the later half. I got down as many gels as I could, and I reach a point where my stomach is like, no, this is going to be a problem if you give me any more. So, I again don't have a ton of time, but I want to at least experiment with something that I can take in the back half, that I'm going to get not just the carbs, because we do tend to prioritize those, but the calories as well. You have to have something to burn. But
I did the math. I took in just under 1100 calories, so I was right around 250 270 calories an hour, which is a little light for me. I would say 3 to 350 is better for me. I feel better. But the weather at Oakland, for me anyway, until I got onto the bridge, I wasn't cold, but I felt cool.
It was a little chilly. Yeah.
For the first 2 hours. And then when we got onto the bridge, I was still, because of the wind, I was like, this isn't bad. It was once I started coming back over the bridge is when I could feel the heat pick up a little bit. But all in all, I didn't feel like it was too hot. So I wasn't burning extra fuel because of the heat. So I was right on pace. But obviously, as this Run Club tour progresses forward, we're going to be running in warmer weather as we move along. And I'll bring extra calories with me. But I had 400 calories of Tailwind in liquid form with my handheld. I had 200 calories of goo from that that sour peach flavor. And I had 430 calories of Spring, which was one of those apple sauce, or I don't know the actual name, but
awesome sauce.
Awesome sauce. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have one that is like an acai berry, which is like 250 calories. And then I took one before we started racing, like 2 minutes before we started running. That was 100 calorie, just Kickstarter. So yeah, all in all, about 1100 calories. And I felt great throughout the event in terms of nutrition. Like I didn't feel hungry at all. So maybe I'll pack an extra 200. Awesome sauce is 180 calories. I'll probably pack an extra one of those just to have on me at Pittsburgh. But otherwise, I'm all right with the way it turned out. Maybe I could actually take a Tailwind packet and get liquid calories in that way and just fill up at the aid station with the water.
And that's, if I were to change anything, I may experiment with just kind of a liquid, like a Tailwind, or we got those Cecilia over at Goo. Round of applause for all the people at Goo, but she had these really, really great kind of gift bags for us to go. And they had that the Goo, the Roctane drink mix, which I've never tried before, but I'm assuming it's their version of Tailwind. So I may experiment with that on some of my long runs here, and that might kind of help me crack the code.
Their Roctane is really good. I used it when I raced at Lake Sonoma a number of years ago. It's really good.
Yeah, no, and I do like the Roctane gels as well, which I did not bring with me this time. But again, this was actually the most gels I'd ever taken. So I had brought 4 with me, and then I took 1 on course as well. And I'm actually surprised I was able to handle that, because usually anything more than about 3 and I'm struggling. But we had even talked about, and this may be more psychological than anything else, but mixing up the flavors a little bit. Just any sort of thing to kind of trick your brain into being able to get more down. But
for me, it's the viscosity of the gel. Awesome sauce is easy to take down. The acai berry one that is 100 calories that Spring has is easy to take down. The Goo gels are fairly easy to take down. Spring, the one that has the heaviest amount of calories at 250, it's really thick. So I have to take half of it in, drink water, then take the other half of it in and drink water to get it all down. Because otherwise it's way too thick for me to try to get it all in.
Yeah, no, and that is the other thing is, it's the viscosity, and we've talked about before with that's where I will say Morton kind of shines. It's a very weird texture, but it does just kind of it's like a jellyfish or something. It just slides down your throat, so you don't really have to.
Rockefeller.
Oh, there you go, exactly.
Get some horseradish and some hot sauce, and you'll be fine.
Oh, see, now we might invent a whole new segment of racing fuel right here. Doesn't everybody want some oyster flavored gels at mile 22? Doesn't that sound good?
Some escargot.
Right.
You think Morton is expensive? We'll sell those for like $15 a gel.
There you go.
And if we have ambassadors, you have to eat the gel with your pinky up as you. You do know that we just gave somebody a business idea, right?
Oh, I'm sure the light bulb went off for somebody.
Somebody's right like, we're going to make a French-based gel company, and it's all going to taste like all different types of French food, and we'll sell it for a top dollar.
Right. Some Michelin star gels or something like that.
Now you're talking, dude. We just throw 3 stars on there. We'll be all right.
3-star gels. Write that down. That's your business idea right there. Now watch, a year from now, we'll see somebody dropping those.
Who do we get to work with? Gordon Ramsay did an Ironman once. Maybe we could work with him on designing the flavor of the 3-star gel.
For sure. Anybody who knows any of Gordon Ramsay's people, just give us a call. Give us a number here.
and what we'll call it is, instead of Michelin, we'll call it Michelle Man, so that we can appeal to the female audience, Michelle Man. Mm-hmm. And we'll have Gordon Ramsay design the flavors. We'll put 3 stars on it. I'm telling you.
Oh no, this may actually be a winner right here.
Zagat, give us a call. We can hook it up.
Seriously.
Overall, dude, I will say, like, for the first stop on the tour, and I said this to you over the weekend, I was blown away. Thank you to Lizzie and Hella Bay Running for inviting our crew to come hang out with your team and the Black Men Run Bay area. Coach Ralph, Tommy, I believe his name was too. Really appreciate you guys bringing us in like we were family, even though you just met us on Saturday morning. I had a great time running around Lake Merritt with everybody that was there. Lizzie does a great job. And Liz, who is her partner at Hella Bay Running and getting that stuff set up, were awesome in breaking us up into groups. The pre-workout, introduce yourself and do an exercise that starts with your first initial, was pretty awesome. And so it's just like, it was really cool to be a part of that running club and to kick off this run club tour. And honestly, Pittsburgh, Salt Lake, Seattle, San Francisco, and Lebanon, Indiana, you got your work cut out. This is going to be a hard act to follow.
Well, and that's I had even said to you, and I truly believe this. It turned out better than I could have even envisioned, and it was very much thanks to Hella Bay Running, to Black Men Run. All the great groups that came out and let us kind of party with them, and it was like an instant community we had there. These are people who we have never hung out with face to face before, or very briefly. But there was just such a sense of camaraderie. It was really, really great. And if we can have something like that at every stop, this entire tour is going to be a resounding success. I really believe that each stop is going to get a little bit bigger too, which would be so cool.
Yeah, I am pumped. Well, dude, this has been fun. We've got the rest of this week. At least I've got the rest of this week to continue to recover. I have a blog post. Today's March 24th. There will be a blog post coming out March 25th about the lessons I've learned from racing at Oakland. I'm super fired up about the rest of this tour and the training that we're going to be going through. Finish time for me, by the way, was 4 hours and 29 minutes and change. I am beyond happy with how the race turned out, so much so that the time doesn't matter. As I was getting closer to the finish line and couldn't do math, by the way, I was like, I'm going to finish around 4:20 and finish 10 minutes later because I couldn't math by then. I was like, who cares? You just ran a marathon. This was so much fun.
No, and that's the whole thing. And again, maybe it was me making the best of a bad situation in my head or whatever, but it's like, I reached a certain point where the 5:30 pace group is passing me up, and they're like, come run with it. And it's like, no, I literally cannot run. I appreciate you guys, but you go get them. I'll see you at the finish line, sort of thing. And it didn't bother me. And honestly, I had this thought. I'm laying in bed that night, kind of dozing off. I literally finished just a few minutes short of 2 hours off of my PR time. And yet I'm probably more proud of finishing 550 for the first time in my life than I was of the time I finished 355. So, take that for whatever it's worth. There's lessons there. I've kind of been kicking around in my head, either writing something down or, whatever, just about everything that kind of went through my head at the time. But there's definitely lessons there. But this medal right here, I'm not joking when I made the post. This is the hardest medal I've ever earned in my life, and this is the one that I'm the most proud of. So your finishing time is not the whole story, because it's like, I can finish much faster. I have finished much faster. I never in my life thought I would finish a marathon at 550. There probably would have been a time where I would have been just beside myself with, being so upset, or I would have just said, fuck it, and not even finished. But 550 is literally the time I am the proudest of, and it shows.
It's funny. I wrote, as we were driving home yesterday from Oakland, I asked Lori to send me text messages all along the way for blog post ideas as I had driving. And one of them is, I want to write a blog post about my mental processing of my last marathon, which I finished in 3:31, compared to this marathon, which I finished in 4:29. I mean, literally almost exactly an hour later.
Yeah.
And what does maturity look like over 14 years? What does the sport look like to me now, 14 years later? What does that time mean to me 14 years later? Questions like that I want to answer in the blog post, because look, it's on the screen. It says Everyday Athlete Clubhouse. We are the everyday athlete. That is the platform that we have built. And it's not to say that everyday athletes don't run 3:31s. It's not to say that everyday athletes don't run 7-hour marathons. It's to say that we are athletes who live every day, which means things come up, and not every day is going to be unicorns and rainbows. And you just have to deal with what's being presented to you in a way that allows you to continue to show up for these events, continue to show up for training, and most importantly, continue to show up and have fun with these things. Because I could beat myself up. Oh, I didn't lengthen my stride in the last 5 miles, and I could have shaved 10 minutes if I had actually run. And I could go down the rabbit hole real easily about all of that stuff. Instead, I'm going to celebrate the fucking 4:29, because there's also somebody out there who's about to beat themselves up for running a 4:29 when they shouldn't.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's one of those things where it comes back down to, it's supposed to be fun.
Yes.
We paid to be there. We were not getting paid for this. So have fun with it. Enjoy it. And I know I have already made multiple posts thanking everybody, but I'll take a second here as well. Just as I was kind of live posting, when things were really going bad, and whatever. And the way people were reaching out, that was huge too. And not necessarily to say, oh, that's so much fun, but it really does give you a little bit different perspective, where it's like, nobody gives a shit about what your finish time is going to be here. And I mean, of course, I don't want to say that to, if you are an everyday athlete or whoever, and you're chasing that BQ or whatever it is, I'm not trying to delegitimize that. It is a huge accomplishment, and I'll be right there applauding you when you get it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like, people are going to cheer you on regardless. And I had posted something this morning, and it's true. I'm not necessarily Mr. Oh, I'm too tough to cry or whatever, this and that. But, towards the end, just all the words of encouragement and everything. And then I get a voice message from my daughter, and she's just telling me, never give up. I'm not going to lie. I teared up a little bit. It's like, damn, all these people are really cheering for me like this. Like, how cool is that? And that's the thing. It's like, yeah, if I would have gotten a 3:45, that would have been a great memory too. But this was a pretty great memory. You feel like the guy in what's that Christmas movie I hate, the Mr. Potter and whatever, this and that. And at the end, he's like, I didn't know I had so many friends. And it's like,
Street?
No, the other one.
Christmas?
No, Wonderful. It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. The other one, the old black and white Christmas movie.
Yeah. And it's like, of course, I knew, everybody would be, but it's like, it's different. You got everybody, people taking time out of the day to just reach out and be like, you got this. And it's like, damn, Like it puts love in your heart. It really does.
I will say this, dude, and we're getting close to wrapping this up, but we talk about community. We talk about our clubhouse. We've been talking about it incessantly for 5.5, 6 years at this point. And I really saw it on race day after I posted on Threads that I had finished. And I said, now let's all cheer Santino on so that he can get to the finish line. And I tagged you in that post. And then like right after that, it was like, boom, 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 boom. Like all the people in our community cheering for you to finish. And that's when, like, for me in that moment right there, I was like, we got something special here, man. Like
1,000,000%, 1,000,000%.
People that are on the East Coast, people on the West Coast, people that are in the UK, are commenting, people in Australia, because I think Kim Colville replied to that post, just like cheering you on to get to that finish line. It was just so damn cool to see and moving. And it really was the sort of like that, you call it eye opener in a sense. It's not to say that we don't communicate with everybody as it is, but look, this is a moment in the middle of a Sunday afternoon. People have lives. People are doing all kinds of shit.
Absolutely.
And so if you finished in just under 6 hours, it would have been 1 p.m. So this is probably around noon our time, which means it's 3 o'clock on the East Coast, right? People are, taking naps, getting ready for March Madness, all kinds of shit. And they were all replying. And I just thought, man, this says a lot about the Run, Try, Bike community and the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse members that we have, that they're all here cheering you on late afternoon for most people on a Sunday when they should be napping, cleaning their house, getting ready for the Sunday scaries.
Right? No, 100%. And that's the thing is, we have, I'm not joking. I'm not bullshitting. I'm not saying it just because it's our thing, but we have probably the best community in the space. Everybody who's here, they're here because they want to be. And two, they support everybody else who's here. And you don't see that a lot. There's not a ton of, if there's competition or whatever, it's friendly competition. There's not a ton of, sniping at each other or whatever. Everybody is building everybody up, and you don't see that. That's a very, very uncommon thing. Even in, a lot of the communities that tout themselves as inclusive, as positive, whatever, this and that, there's separation. And there's no separation here. We have sub 3-hour marathoners in our community. We have 7-hour marathoners in our community. And guess what? They all cheer each other on. And that is huge. This is one of the few kind of places in the space, RTB, Everyday Athlete Clubhouse, where everybody is rooting for everybody. I'm sure there are other, run clubs, other groups out there where it's like that, but I certainly haven't experienced it until now.
Yeah, I mean, we're virtual in a digital space, but we are global. We got people in Australia, people in Belgium, people in the UK, people in every part of this country, as well as in Canada. You're not going to see that very much from a digital perspective, from a virtual club perspective, where people do come and hang out and they do want to cheer each other on. And so for all of you that are part of this community, thank you so much. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. I think we should probably do one after maybe the first week of actual training for Pittsburgh to see if we hold true to ourselves about what we're going to be doing with
100%.
All right, dude, I appreciate you. Thanks for jumping on this show with me and for facilitating the whole process for the Run Club Tour and making our way to the next venue now.
Absolutely. And hey, the party is just getting started. So, it's we made Oakland a resounding success, and Pittsburgh's going to be just as much of a success.
And here's a little cherry icing on the cake, cherry on the top of the sundae. If you do want to run Pittsburgh, we have a discount code, VAL20. Val Porter is one of the ambassadors for the Pittsburgh Marathon. Use code VAL20 and save yourself some money and come share the miles, smiles, and laughs. We'll see you next time on the next Beyond the Training episode. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody.